Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're starting part 1 of an awesome What If Deku Had Harem with every MHA girl's story. If you want to see part 2, drop a comment below and tell me what you think. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. It really helps the channel grow. Now sit back, relax, and let's jump into the story. Inko Midoriya sat on the train making the long journey home, her newborn child resting quietly in her arms. All bundled in blankets, his snow-white hair peeked out. The rocking of the train had lulled the child into a deep slumber. She dabbed at her eyes, still red from her earlier tears. Inko was now a single mother with nowhere to go. The boy's father, a hero named Taish, known for his luck, had met a tragic fate when a building collapsed on him. He had saved 23 people before the structure fell, rushing back in to try and rescue more. He may not have been a prominent hero, but he was her hero. He had saved her from a mugging, and from that moment, it was love at first sight. They had shared a whirlwind romance, and she had become pregnant. They had planned to marry after their son was born. With his passing and their not being married, Inko found herself without spousal benefits. At least their son would receive an inheritance at 18, which was a small comfort. Now, she was on her way to her great-great-great-grandmother's home, where her father lived, caring for his great-grandmother. He had invited her to come home, present her son, and stay. It was customary to bring a child to great-grandmother Hess. Great-grandmother Hess was an enigma. Photos of her from the earliest days of quirks existed, and people would travel from far and wide to present their children to her. Although the practice had faded over time, some still sought her wisdom. She would take the child and offer the parents a sort of prophecy or reading for the child's life. It was said that those who followed her advice would lead better lives. So many sought her guidance. Though often considered eccentric, Inko loved her. She had spent much time with Grandma Hess since childhood. Even in her advanced years, Hess's eyes sparkled with mischief, and her warm hugs had a way of making everything feel better. Inko needed that comfort and guidance now more than ever. She was uncertain about what life would hold, but she believed Grandma Hess would have the answers. As the train arrived at the station, Inko gathered her son and bags, waiting patiently until the rumble of an old truck caught her attention. Sure enough, it was her father, a big barrel of a man. His once blonde hair had long turned gray, but his green eyes still twinkled with mischief. He wrapped his daughter and grandson in a great hug, laughing heartily as he welcomed her home. They made their way back, her father chatting about life in town. Inko could sense he was searching for the right words. While her father was capable of many things, handling emotions was not one of them. That had been her mother's role. She had passed away when Inko was 12, and though he had done his best, it remained challenging. The conversation nearly faded until they turned onto the long road leading to the house. He spoke softly, filled with love for his daughter, asking how she was holding up. Inko shared that there were good hours and bad, that it was more of a minute-by-minute experience. She missed him dearly and felt lost. She dabbed at her tears with a handkerchief. Her father acknowledged the difficulty, sharing that he still missed her mother every day. He reassured her that Grandma Hess would know what to do, encouraging her to listen to her. He placed his massive hand on her shoulder, reminding her that her little one was what mattered most. Inko looked down at the sleeping infant, understanding the weight of his words. They arrived at the family home, which was large but had seen better days. Her father encouraged her to go inside and see her grandmother. Upon entering, she spotted Sanjo, their longtime family friend, her fox ears and tail twitching at the sound of the door. Sanjo had been with the family for generations, serving as housekeeper, problem solver, surrogate mother, and playmate. The two women embraced warmly, with Sanjo holding Inko close, allowing her to shed more tears. Sanjo offered no platitudes or false reassurances. She simply held Inko tight, letting her release her emotions for a moment. Once Inko composed herself, Sanjo informed her that Grandma Hess was waiting for her in the garden. Inko stepped into the backyard and found her grandmother sitting in the garden, surrounded by a vibrant array of flowers. Inko cherished her grandmother's garden. As a child, she would spend hours there, listening to stories and songs. Sometimes she would simply admire the colors around her, especially when the fuchsia, campanula, lily of the valley, foxglove, and angel's trumpets were in full bloom. Just like now, all the flowers were flourishing, and at the center of it all sat her grandmother. With her head tilted back and eyes closed, she softly murmured to herself. Inko paused for a moment until her grandmother turned to her, the gentle sound of jingling bells filling the air. Her grandmother was a small, plump woman. Once long blue hair had turned white, yet she still wore it in pigtails, held in place with ribbons adorned with old silver bells. She smiled warmly at her granddaughter and extended her arms. She welcomed Inko home, calling her little butterfly. Inko expressed her happiness at being home, mentioning how she had missed the warmth of her grandmother's hearth. Her grandmother had taught her this beautiful language long ago, and Inko loved how it flowed like a song or a gentle stream, filling her with warmth whenever she spoke it. Her grandmother expressed joy at Inko's memory and asked to see her sons, eager to discuss the future. Inko approached and handed her son to her grandmother. As she cradled him, her grandmother gazed down at the boy, who fussed slightly, letting out small cries. His little eyes opened, looking up at his great-grandmother. For a moment, it seemed as if a deep understanding passed between them. Inko observed her grandmother's eyes welling with tears as she looked down at the child. She welcomed him back, expressing how much she had missed him and wondering if he had come to see her one last time before she departed. Inko felt a mix of confusion and concern, not fully grasping her grandmother's words, but captivated by the joy and sadness on her face. She had never seen her grandmother like this, speaking with such love. She asked if everything was all right. Her grandmother reassured her, explaining that her son was destined for greatness, destined to become the greatest hero the land had ever known. She hoped Inko's dreams for the future included grandchildren. Inko questioned her grandmother's certainty, to which her grandmother replied with unwavering confidence. She encouraged Inko to sit and share everything, especially the most important detail, her son's name. Inko proudly revealed his name, Izuku Beru Midoriya. Her grandmother repeated the name, laughing joyfully, and tears fell once more as she welcomed him home, calling him Bell. That evening, as they sat at the table enjoying their meal, Inko felt a sense of contentment. Her grandmother had made a strong prophecy about her son, though it felt strange. Her grandmother listened to Inko's story and encouraged her to return to schools, to pursue her dream of becoming a doctor. Inko hesitated, having switched from her childhood dream to nursing, now a 19-year-old single mother. Her grandmother insisted, tapping her walking stick on the floor, emphasizing that Inko would go to medical school and return home on weekends to spend time with Izuku. She would prepare a proper future for both of them, reminding Inko that now was the time to work hard for a prosperous life. Inko knew there was no arguing with her grandmother. She understood that when her grandmother saw a path forward, things tended to work out for the best. If her grandmother believed in this future for her, Inko would listen. She had to create a good life for Izuku. That night, as Izuku slept, his grandmother quietly entered his room. She gently unwrapped the child, leaving him in just his diaper. From her clothing, she produced a small black dagger and made a tiny cut on her finger. With careful precision, she traced an intricate design on the child's back. With the blood, she marked him, binding him with her essence. She wished for his growth to be swift and his heart to remain true. The world would tremble, for the Argonaut had returned. Time passed. Grandma Hess allowed Inko some time to recuperate before assigning her tasks. When the school initially declined, Grandma Hess made a call, and suddenly, a spot opened for Inko. She arranged for a small apartment on campus for her, with train tickets every Friday evening and Sunday afternoon. Inko steeled herself, clenching her fists. For Izuku, this became her mantra. When faced with a difficult class, she reminded herself, for Izuku. When exhaustion threatened her studies, she thought, for Izuku. When tempted to skip a study session or lab, she repeated, for Izuku. Heaven and earth would tremble before her determination, fueled by her love for her son Izuku. Each night she would call and talk to him, her heart heavy with the moments she missed. His first step, his first word, Hess, and then Mama. So many firsts. But with her mantra in her heart and mind, she would persevere. Izuku understood love. He was surrounded by it. Grandma Hess loved him dearly, and his earliest memories were filled with her laughter, the sound of the bells in her hair, and her playful nature. She spoke a whimsical language and shared wondrous stories. Among them, his absolute favorite was The Many Adventures of the Brave, Brave Rabbit. The way Grandma told the tales, with whispers and shouts, different voices for each character: the little mouse supporter, the fox maid, the wise crow warrior, the red panda blacksmith, and the wind fairy, captivated him. He especially loved when the wind fairy appeared, saving the brave rabbit. In fact, she was the reason the rabbit learned to be brave instead of scared. The rabbit chased after the wind fairy, who was elusive. Grandma had shared a secret with him. He needed to find his own wind fairy to chase, and in doing so, he would grow stronger. He would rise to such heights that the wind fairy would chase him. His grandfather told him another favorite story, the tale of the Argonaut, the great hero who faced incredible odds and monsters. His deeds caught the attention of the gods themselves, the hero from before the age of heroes, the one who changed the world, a true hero. His grandfather would pause, look around, and share a secret that no one else knew. A hero's job was to save every girl in need, to save and love them. Izuku would giggle at his grandfather's words. One day, Izuku played in a sandbox, maneuvering his dump truck to move the sand. It was a tough job, but he was determined. Until an older boy wanted his dump truck. Izuku couldn't give it up. It was a gift from his grandfather. The boy, sporting bullhorns, didn't take the refusal well. He punched Izuku and took the truck. Izuku tried to chase after him, but he was too small. So he did the only thing he could, he cried. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through, accompanied by a whoosh. He heard the boys scream and a girl's voice call out, urging them to stop being mean to those smaller than themselves. A shadow fell over Izuku, and he looked up to see someone standing above him. She asked if he was okay and assured him she had retrieved his truck. He noticed her hair, a mix of blue and blonde, as she handed back his precious toy. His tears ceased as he gazed at her. "Did you make the wind go whoosh?" he asked, wide-eyed. "Yup, I can make it whoosh a lot." "See?" she demonstrated, making the wind swirl around them. His hands flew to his mouth in astonishment. "The wind fairy?" The little girl laughed, confirming her identity. She warned him not to let anyone take his truck and then dashed away. "Wait!" he called, but she didn't hear him. He attempted to run after her, but his little legs stumbled and he fell. He lay there until he felt his grandfather scoop him up. "Are you all right, my little hero?" his grandfather asked. "Are you okay, Belle?" he heard his grandmother's voice. Grandma, I found her," he exclaimed excitedly. "Who did you find?" his grandmother inquired. "The wind fairy. She was so pretty. Some bully took my truck, but she made the wind go whoosh and saved it. Then she ran away." A twinkle of delight lit up in his grandmother's eyes as she remarked on the wind fairy saving him from a bull monster. Izuku, filled with excitement, nodded in agreement, expressing his determination to grow strong enough to catch her. At just 4.5 years old, Izuku was on his way home from kindergarten, walking hand in hand with Sanjo. He animatedly shared stories about his classmates and their quirks, expressing his deep desire to have a quirk of his own, one that would allow him to shoot fire and save people, just like a brave rabbit. Sanjo smiled encouragingly, assuring him that when his quirk arrived, it would be extraordinary. They stopped at the store to pick up dinner, and Izuku eagerly pleaded to ride the rocket ship outside while Sanjo shopped. With a smile, she handed him 200 yen, allowing him to enjoy 2 rides. He joyfully inserted his coin and climbed aboard, relishing his journey to space. The second ride was even more thrilling as he imagined defeating the evil Freya and saving the galaxy. After climbing out, Izuku patiently waited for Sanjo when he noticed a girl with brown hair and pink cheeks dashing across the street, calling out excitedly about the spaceship. She had escaped her mother's grasp, racing toward her desired ride. A truck approached, and Izuku's heart raced as he realized the danger. Without thinking, He sprinted toward her, feeling a surge of energy in his legs. Everything slowed down as he blinked, and suddenly he found himself cradling the girl in his arms, the truck's horn blaring in the background. Sanjo, standing in line at the checkout, noticed Izuku by the window. Her heart dropped as she saw him run into the street, and she let out a startled scream, rushing outside. In slow motion, she witnessed him and the little girl about to be struck by the truck. Moments earlier, Ochako had been happily walking with her mother after a doctor's appointment. Her quirk had manifested, allowing her to make things float, including herself and her bed. She admired her new mittens, which reminded her of space gloves, and spotted the rocket ship that promised adventures among the stars. She dashed toward it, excitement bubbling within her. The blaring horn of the truck snapped her attention back to reality, and she heard her mother scream. Suddenly, a boy with snow-white hair and green eyes appeared right in front of her. He collided with her, and in that moment, she felt as if she were floating in space, only to be jolted back to pain. Now, Izuku crashed onto the sidewalk, pain radiating through him as he tumbled against the store. He held the girl tightly, but in doing so, he had no protection for himself. He learned a crucial lesson that day. Concrete and bricks were unforgiving. As he hit the building, pain surged through his head, and amidst the chaos, he heard the girl crying. He felt a sense of relief, knowing he had saved her, but darkness began to creep in. Sanjo fell to her knees, overwhelmed by despair. Izuku had been struck by a truck, and she felt she had failed in her most important duty to keep him safe. She rushed toward the screeching truck, bracing herself for the worst. Instead of seeing the horrific scene, she heard the girl crying. Looking across the street, she saw the little girl reaching out to her mother, and then her gaze fell on Izuku, crumpled against the storefront, his snow-white hair stained red. Inko's phone rang during class, startling her and causing her embarrassment. She quickly apologized to her professor and classmates, glancing at the caller ID. It was Grandma Hess. Her face paled as she answered, bolting upright and grabbing her purse. She called out to her friend Ikuto to gather her things, urgently informing him that Izuku had been hurt as she rushed out of the classroom. Ikuto Yaoyorozu blinked for a moment as she gathered her friend's belongings. She apologized to the teacher and encouraged him to continue with the lesson. Concern for her friend weighed heavily on her mind. The two had formed a bond over their experiences as mothers returning to school to complete their degrees. She was aware that Izuku was Inko's son. Quietly, she sent a request on her phone to the nannies for an update on Momo. Grandma Hess sat in the car while her grandson drove at an alarming speed. Sanjo's frantic call had been shocking, to say the least. Her little Belle had saved a girl from a dangerous situation, but true to hero form, had injured himself in the process. Worry for her little Belle filled her heart. He was not even 5 years old and already saving girls. That was her Belle, and she wouldn't have it any other way. The Minotaur let out a fierce roar. Izuku stood his ground, refusing to show fear. The Wind Fairy had saved Tim once again, but this time he wanted to be the one protecting her. His heart raced, and gripping the dagger tightly, he rose to his feet. He was determined to be a hero and protect all those he cared about. With resolve, he charged at the Minotaur, ready to take down the beast himself. Izuku slowly opened his eyes, feeling a sharp pain in his head. Someone was holding his hand. As he adjusted to the light, he recognized the familiar green hair of his mother, who was asleep with her head resting on the bed. He squeezed her hand gently, waking her. Upon seeing him awake, she nearly jumped out of her chair to embrace him, but caught herself at the last moment. Instead, she pulled him into a gentle hug, tears streaming down her face. Then it hit him. He asked about the little girl, his voice filled with concern. Inko looked at her son, who had suffered a concussion and cracked his skull. The first words out of his mouth were about the girl he had saved. He was a hero just like his father, and that frightened Inko. "Yes, Izuku, she is okay. Are you all right? You scared your mother to death." He expressed his regret, explaining that he didn't even remember running out to save her. He just wanted to help. Inko reached over to press the nurse call button. "You did save her. She has some bruises, but she will be just fine." Izuku then mentioned that he thought his quirk had awakened, describing how he had run to the girl and then suddenly crashed. We'll discuss that with the doctors later, my brave little rabbit, but first, you are going to be embraced by your worried mother. She pulled him close for another hug. Izuku cherished these moments with his mother, especially when she would visit on Fridays and leave on Sundays. It always felt warm and comforting, and even in the hospital, she made it feel like home, as if he were sitting in front of a cozy fireplace, enveloped in warmth. After informing the nurse that her son was awake, Inko released him when he tapped on her back for air. He excitedly recounted his adventure, describing the spaceship and the girl running into the street. His mother listened intently, giggling at the sound effects he added. "Well, my brave little rabbit, it sounds like you had quite an adventure," she said, rubbing his back and smiling as the doctor entered the room. As the doctor approached, Izuku felt a strange heat building in his back. Initially, he thought it was from his mother's comforting touch, but soon it turned into a burning sensation. Panic set in as he began to scream about the pain. Inko jumped up as the doctor rushed over, quickly opening the back of his gown to reveal a dark liquid moving beneath his skin. The doctor pressed the emergency button, and the door burst open, revealing Grandma Hess. Inko called out to her mother, expressing her concern about Izuku's back. Grandma Hess recognized the swirling black liquid and understood the gravity of the situation. She instructed her grandson to keep everyone out and approached Inko, asking her to recount everything that had happened since Izuku woke up. Inko took a deep breath and began to explain, and to her surprise, Grandma Hess smiled brightly. The doctor looked at Grandma Hess in confusion as she demanded a needle urgently. Her eyes shone with determination, and she insisted that he comply immediately. The doctor blinked and quickly followed her orders. Inko was instructed to roll Izuku onto his stomach, and she did so without hesitation. Grandma Hess took Inko's finger and pricked it with the needle, instructing her to drop some blood onto Izuku's back and repeat her words exactly. Inko hesitated, but Grandma Hess's commanding tone left no room for argument. She complied, her heart racing as she heard the commotion outside the door. With each word spoken by Grandma Hess, Inko echoed her, and the atmosphere shifted. The swirling darkness ceased, and letters began to appear on Izuku's back, accompanied by a symbol of a bell encircled in flames. Numbers and letters formed beneath the newly inscribed symbol. Divine Blessing Rabbit Step Lyris Freeze. The ink settled, leaving a dark mark resembling a tattoo on Izuku's back. Grandma Hess beamed at her grandchildren, praising Inko for her efforts and instructing her to let the medical staff in. As the door swung open, nurses and doctors rushed in, and Izuku, feeling a sense of relief, turned to his mother with a smile, expressing that he felt much better. Inko glanced at her son and then at her grandmother, who simply smiled back and said, "Tonight." Grandma Hess pulled the doctor aside for a brief conversation, and soon he nodded in understanding. After examining Izuku, they determined he would need to stay for observation due to a concussion. That evening, Inko joined her grandmother in the gardens, where they settled down as Sanjo served tea and quietly left. Inko asked about the events at the hospital, and Grandma Hess urged her to listen closely, emphasizing the importance of what she was about to share. Their family possessed a unique quirk that occasionally manifested, and what Inko had seen on Izuku's back was that very quirk, known as Divine Blessing. It was rare and ancient, growing through experience rather than mere practice, unlike Inko's telekinesis. The more someone experienced, the stronger they became, and their deeds were recorded and guided through their blood. Their family had been connected to this quirk since its inception, and Grandma Hess had once been the record keeper for her late husband. The special language they used allowed them to engrave deeds upon a person's soul, a skill that Inko had inherited. Inko listened intently, her curiosity piqued as she asked what this meant for her. Grandma Hess explained that Inko would be responsible for recording Izuku's achievements and helping him grow stronger. She expressed the urgency of teaching Inko, as her time was limited, and asked if she would take on the role of guiding Izuku toward becoming the hero he was destined to be. Inko felt a wave of fear wash over her, recalling her past loss. Tears threatened to spill from her eyes as she voiced her concerns. Grandma Hess reassured her, explaining that while Izuku would face danger without Inko's guidance, he would only access a fraction of his potential, putting him at greater risk. Inko sighed heavily, accepting her grandmother's request and asking how she could help Izuku stay safe. Grandma Hess began to explain how Inko could bring friends into their family, but Inko was taken aback by the mention of lovers. Grandma Hess laughed heartily, teasing that Inko would soon be surrounded by grandchildren. Time passed, and 2 days later, Izuku returned home from the hospital, fully healed without any stitches or staples. It seemed that his quirk, Divine Blessing, allowed him to heal faster than most. He discovered another ability called Rabbit Step, which enabled him to teleport short distances. This newfound skill explained how he had managed to cross the street so quickly, appearing beside a girl who had come to apologize. They quickly decided to play together, forming an instant bond of friendship. Ochako and Izuku were enjoying a day at the park after school, swinging happily when the bully known as the Bull Boy returned. He attempted to push Ochako down, but Izuku quickly intervened, colliding with the bully and sending him tumbling. However, once the Bull Boy managed to grab hold of Izuku, the situation turned dire. Ochako found herself struggling against the bully's friends when suddenly a gust of wind swept through the area. The Wind Fairy appeared, dazzling them with her swift movements as she came to their rescue. Both Ochako and Izuku were in awe of her agility. The Wind Fairy spoke rapidly, making it difficult for Ochako to keep up, while Izuku matched her pace, which amused Ochako greatly. Just as quickly as she had arrived, the Wind Fairy departed, leaving behind her name, Nejire. When Izuku was 6 years old, tragedy struck his family. He sensed something was amiss when his mother returned home one Tuesday. His grandma Hess had not been feeling well for some time. Despite her condition, she still shared stories and sang old songs to him, holding him close and stroking his hair. They had moved her bed into the garden, where many visitors came to see her. Izuku watched as people cried, and Grandma Hess would comfort them with her gentle smile. Even heroes came to pay their respects, signing his book before joining her in the garden for heartfelt conversations. His mother was deeply saddened, and a friend from school brought a new companion for Izuku named Momo, who was very kind. When he inquired about what was happening, Momo explained that her grandfather had experienced the same fate the previous year, preparing to ascend to heaven. Izuku felt tears well up. He didn't want his grandma to leave. He wanted her to stay and continue telling him stories. Momo embraced him, understanding his pain, as she too wished her grandfather could remain. However, her mother had reassured her that in heaven, her grandfather would always watch over her. On a Sunday night, his mother asked him to say goodbye. He walked to the garden and found Grandma Hess lying on a blanket among her flowers, with his grandfather standing nearby. She extended her hand to Izuku, who approached her, wiping away his tears, and lay down beside her. "My precious little Belle, I cannot join you on this adventure, but I will always be watching over you, I promise. You are destined to be a great hero, my little Belle. Make sure your voice rings out loud and clear for all to hear. I am grateful to have seen you again. Now, promise me something. Anything, Grandma Hess. Promise that you will always protect those you love, and that you will keep smiling, even in the darkest times. I promise." Grandma Hess. Hestia say, "I promise, Hestia. I promise, Hestia." As tears streamed down his face, Grandma Hess looked at him with a warm smile, her eyes sparkling. He returned her smile, fulfilling his promise. She gently caressed his face, her eyes closing. A brilliant pillar of light enveloped them, stretching toward the heavens. In that moment, Izuku thought he saw his grandma as a young woman, radiant and joyful, embraced by a lovely lady with red hair and an eye patch, along with others who seemed to be waiting for her. As the light began to fade, he heard his grandma call out, urging him to go be a hero. Izuku, be the best hero ever. He vowed to do so, feeling a warm sensation on his back as a new word emerged in his mind, Argonaut. When the light vanished, Grandma Hess was no longer there. There was no trace left behind. The family held a private ceremony for her and erected a monument in the garden in her memory. At 8 years old, Izuku felt a deep sadness, which was mirrored by Ochako. Her best friend was moving away. Her mother had graduated from college and secured a job as a doctor at Nagoya Hospital. As they sat together, Ochako handed Izuku her action figure, and in return, he gave her his All Might figure. They promised to stay in touch and visit if possible, but the most important promise was that they would become heroes together and attend UA High School side by side. That day, Izuku received his first kiss, leaving him stunned as Ochako ran away, calling back to him, "I love you, Izuku." His grandfather congratulated him on his first girlfriend with a gentle pat on the back. As they prepared to leave, Izuku noticed his grandfather handing a small box to his mother. Inko smiled at the sight of young love and the stunned expression on her son's face. She had already loaded him into the car, having purchased it with part of her inheritance after Grandma Hess passed away. It turned out that Grandma was more financially secure than anyone had realized. Inko, her father, Sanjo, and Izuku had all received substantial inheritances. Inko's education was fully funded, allowing her to buy a lovely house in Nagoya, conveniently located near her hospital. There were also funds set aside for Izuku's schooling, enabling her to enroll him in a private academy. Ikuto had assisted Inko in enrolling him in the same school as her daughter Momo. The house felt empty now. Sanjo had gone to retire with relatives, and her grandfather planned to travel the world. It simply wasn't the same without Grandma Hess. As she was leaving, her father approached and handed her the box. Inside, she found a black dagger that belonged to Izuku. Hestia's will had been very clear about this. She closed the box, hugged her dad, and walked over to the car. They were off to start a new chapter in their lives. Izuku and Momo lay on their backs on the floor of her family's dojo, panting heavily. Izuku reflected on their latest plan, admitting that it had sounded better in his head, especially since Momo's idea from the previous week hadn't worked out either. Momo smiled, recalling that it hadn't been her best idea, but it had certainly been enjoyable. Izuku teased her about how much fun she had with their training. They staggered to their feet, and Momo picked up his dagger, tossing it to him as he threw her staff back. Their sensei smiled at them, adjusting her maid outfit and encouraging them to give it one more try with enthusiasm. The duo charged in, determined that this time their plan would lead them to victory. Suddenly, Izuku found himself dodging an incoming foot. He came to with his head resting in Momo's lap, realizing that their plan had failed. Momo thanked him for taking the hit for her, calling it a sweet gesture. Izuku felt his cheeks warm, playfully claiming that he was just as sweet as a cinnamon roll. Momo was glad to see his sense of humor was intact, but they needed to focus on studying for their chemistry test. Izuku teased her, saying that just when he thought she was the best, she would turn around and be the absolute worst. Momo smiled at his playful banter. He helped her to her feet, and she declared they were heading to the library. He jokingly responded that they were going into hell. Momo insisted that he would be spending the night again, and he confirmed that it was fine since his mom was working the night shift. As they finished studying, they shared dinner together, a routine they enjoyed most nights. While walking upstairs, Izuku asked Momo if he could borrow a book from the library, having finished the one she recommended. Momo encouraged him to help himself, and he thanked her. Izuku wandered into the library, searching through the stacks until he was startled by a cough. He turned to see one of the maids, who had light gray hair and warm eyes, offering him a book with intriguing markings. Although he found it odd that she called him Master Bell, he brushed it off. Curious about the book, he asked if it was good, and she assured him he would love it. He expressed his gratitude, and she curtsies before leaving. He took the book, made his way to his room, got ready for bed, and settled down with it. The book began with a captivating line about a time when mankind was on the brink of destruction, and great beasts had risen from the depths until a gift was bestowed: magic. As he read, Izuku drifted into darkness. In his dream, the Moss Unique roared at him, and he knew he had to defeat it to save Momo. He raised his dagger, flames engulfing the blade as he leaped forward. Determined to end the threat once and for all, he awoke to find his back sore, and the book was blank. Downstairs, he met Momo, who was puzzled by his story. Things became even stranger when she informed him that there was no servant by the name of Seer. They summoned the head butler, who confirmed that no one matching that description worked there. When his mother returned home, she recorded a message for him, revealing that his quirk had evolved into something called Firebolt. It felt just like the stories he loved. Little Izuku squealed with excitement. Ingsa sat quietly, observing her son's back as he completed his training ritual. He had been growing stronger since he began training with Momo in her dojo. Over the years, she had noticed the changes each time they updated his status. The numbers were steadily increasing, and it brought her joy, allowing her to sleep better, knowing he was becoming more powerful. At 16 years old, Izuku and Momo found themselves in a private terminal at the airport. Momo expressed her feelings of missing him, but emphasized the importance of seizing the opportunity to attend classes at Cambridge. She reminded him that he had earned the internship and reassured him that it was only for 2 years. Izuku confirmed his commitment to returning to apply to UA. Momo leaned in and gave him a gentle kiss on the cheek, promising to see him at UA. Izuku gazed into her beautiful black eyes and leaned in to kiss her softly on the lips, filled with anticipation for their future together. Momo blushed and walked toward her waiting plane, her fingertips lingering on her lips. As Izuku headed home, he felt the adjustment of Momo's absence. They communicated through texts whenever possible, but her classes were demanding. He focused on his studies and training, though he missed the combat maids who had previously assisted him. One evening, as he made his way home, a woman carrying a child suddenly emerged from an alley and collided with him. Fortunately, Izuku had grown to a respectable height and was in excellent shape from his training, so he remained steady. The woman, a kitsune with blonde hair and a tail, wore a dirty, torn red kimono. The child in her arms was similarly disheveled, dressed in a tattered gray nightgown with heavily bandaged arms. The scent of dirt and blood clung to them. The kitsune pleaded for help, urging him to take the child and run, fearing for their safety. Izuku sensed the urgency in her voice as she insisted that they needed to escape together. Though unsure of how to proceed, he felt compelled to protect them, knowing that it was a hero's duty. Suddenly, a man emerged from the shadows, dressed in black slacks and a shirt, with a white tie and green jacket, wearing a plague mask. He had brown hair and gold eyes, standing slightly taller than Izuku. The kitsune insisted that her sister was ill and didn't understand what she was saying, but Izuku could sense the danger emanating from the man. The kitsune continued to plead for help, and the child clung to Izuku, begging for salvation. Recognizing the threat posed by the man, Izuku positioned the two girls behind him and drew his black dagger, its lettering glowing with a white light. He declared that he would not allow the man to take them. The man dismissed him as foolish and flexed his fingers, preparing to attack. Izuku whispered to the girls to run when the fight began, assuring them he would keep them safe. The kitsune nodded, realizing that this boy was willing to fight for them. As the man prepared to strike the ground, Izuku sprang into action. He needed to prevent the man from making contact. With determination, he unleashed a fire spell, which struck just as the man was about to touch the ground, causing him to leap back with a singed hand. Izuku seized the moment, using his rapid step technique to close the distance and swing his dagger. The man caught the blade in his palm, grunting as he activated his quirk, but nothing happened. This unexpected turn gave Izuku the chance he needed. He pivoted and delivered a powerful spin kick that sent the man flying. Seizing the opportunity, he charged forward, but the man retaliated, causing his own hand to explode and then reform. Izuku's momentary hesitation cost him as the man slammed his hand into the ground, causing sharp spikes to erupt from the alley. Izuku twisted to avoid being impaled but sustained a painful gash on his side. Quickly regaining his balance, he pushed off the wall to gain height. The spikes pursued him, and he urged himself to move faster, employing his rabbit step technique to climb higher until he burst out of the alley into the air. Finding his bearings, he spotted the man below. With determination, he declared his move and descended. He infused his dagger with fire magic, striking down repeatedly as he maneuvered past the spikes. The man raised his hand to counter the incoming attack, but Izuku's strike connected with the ground, creating a powerful explosion that rocked the area, sending spikes flying around them. Izuku's world was spinning, overwhelmed by the chaos around him. He couldn't afford to go down yet. He propelled himself toward his opponent, but was caught off guard by a second attacker, who sent him crashing out of the alley with tremendous force. He rolled into the street, his clothes tearing against the rough asphalt. With broken ribs, he managed to rise to one knee, coughing up blood. Emerging from the alley was a creature he had seen before in a dream, a minotaur, its body a deep red with tufts of black and sharp red horns. It stomped forward, hot breath escaping its nostrils, and commanded, "Asterius, finish him." Izuku charged ahead, ducking under the beast's attack. He slid between its legs, slashing at its joints with his dagger before repositioning himself behind the creature. Overhaul anticipated the hero's disappearance, but the sudden sharp pain in his shoulder revealed otherwise. The black dagger had embedded itself deeply, and as flames ignited within the blade, he reacted instinctively, causing an explosion that knocked Izuku back. As he rolled to the side, Asterius lunged, seizing the hero by the head and slamming him into the wall. Izuku cried out in pain but retaliated by driving his blade into the beast's arm, triggering a fiery explosion that sent him crashing to the ground. He barely managed to roll away from the ensuing blast, but he felt a sharp pain as a spike struck him in the side. He watched in horror as the beast picked up its severed arm, only to witness it reassembled itself, charging once more. Realizing he needed to escape the alley, Izuku pushed himself to the limit, invoking Rabbit Step to propel himself forward. The beast swung its arm behind it, narrowly missing Izuku's already shredded shirt as he fell back into the street. His mind was beginning to fade from exhaustion, overwhelmed by the strain of his powers. Struggling to his feet, his legs trembled as he saw spikes rushing toward him, unable to dodge in time. A voice called out from behind him, urging him to get down. A boy about his age with spiky red hair landed in front of him, crossing his arms in an X. "Maximum hardening," he shouted, bracing himself as the spikes exploded against him. Meanwhile, Eijiro Kirishima and Mina Ashido were caught up in their own excitement. Mina squealed about her victory in a recent tournament, declaring herself unbeatable in the Hero Dance-Off Extreme. Eijiro agreed, reveling in the moment until they were suddenly interrupted by a frantic plea for help. A kitsune in a red kimono appeared, holding a little girl. "Please, we need assistance." "He is fighting alone. We need help." Confused, Mina asked for more details, while Eijiro placed a reassuring hand on the kitsune's shoulder. "What does your friend look like?" "White hair, green eyes. Please, you must help him. Overhaul is going to kill him." Eijiro shouted for Mina to call for help as he dashed in the direction the kitsune had come from. "What are you going to do?" Mina called after him. "The manly thing," he replied, racing toward the sounds of chaos. As he approached the street littered with debris, he saw the white-haired boy being thrown from the alley, bleeding heavily. He noticed a man in a suit emerging, placing his hand on the ground as spikes shot toward him. "Get down!" Eijiro yelled. Meanwhile, Ryuko Tatsuma, the dragon hero, was enjoying a quiet night with her energetic intern, Neijire Hado. They had just finished their patrol when an explosion echoed in the distance. Neijire jumped up with excitement, exclaiming that villainy was afoot. Ryuko sighed, acknowledging the disturbance. "Yes, there is, Neijire. Let's see what we can do about it." Transforming into her dragon form, she leaped into the air, and together they raced off to confront the unfolding crisis. Back on the street, Izuku pressed his hand against the wound in his side, feeling the blood seep through his fingers. "Firebolt," he shouted, the pain intensifying as the wound cauterized, leaving him desperate but determined to continue fighting. Izuku's awareness flickered in and out. He urged Eijiro to avoid contact with their adversary, warning that a mere touch could bring destruction. Eijiro was taken aback by the sudden appearance of Asterius, who charged out of the alley and collided with him. Eijiro managed to catch Asterius by the horns, halting the Minotaur just before reaching the injured Izuku. Overhaul attempted to flank them, and Izuku struggled to lift his dagger as Overhaul's hand approached dangerously close to his face. Eijiro interjected, asserting that Overhaul did not wish to make contact. A sudden shockwave erupted, sending Overhaul sprawling backward and knocking Izuku off balance as well. Eijiro held his ground, but Asterius stumbled, providing Eijiro the chance to push him aside. A dragon descended between the boys and the Minotaur, followed by a graceful girl who positioned herself between them and Overhaul. Izuku felt a sense of peace wash over him as the dragon appeared, accompanied by the Wind Fairy. He smiled, feeling reassured that help had arrived, before his consciousness faded to darkness. The sound of sirens echoed in the distance as another hero Eraserhead approached. Overhaul commanded Asterius to retreat, slamming his hands onto the ground and causing a surge of spikes to erupt as he fled. Neijire scooped up Izuku while Ryuko lifted Eijiro, both heroes soaring into the sky. Asterius shot a glare at Eijiro before disappearing into the night. Neijire glanced down at the bloodied boy in her arms, recalling how he had referred to her as the Wind Fairy. Concerned, she wondered about the connection between him and those with bull-like abilities. As Neijire and Ryuko set the boys down, a fox woman and a little girl rushed to Izuku's side. The woman anxiously inquired about Izuku's condition, while a pink-haired girl collided with the redhead, expressing her frustration. Mina, the pink-haired girl, explained that they had to act quickly, as the police were compromised due to Overhaul's influence. The little girl knelt beside Izuku, tears streaming down her face, when suddenly a light burst forth from a horn on her head. The kitsune instinctively recoiled, urging the girl to calm down. Neijire reached out, but the kitsune tackled her away. Ryuko reacted, but then noticed Izuku's wounds healing and his clothes mending. The little girl fainted, and Ryuko recognized the significance of Eraserhead's floating hair. As the glow faded, the kitsune hurried back to the girl, cradling her gently. Neijire approached them, placing a comforting hand on the fox girl and asking whom they were fleeing from. The girl, tears still flowing, revealed that they were being pursued by Overhaul, whose real name was Kai Chisaki. Eraserhead's breath caught at the mention of the name. The girl pleaded for protection, especially for Eri. Neijire exchanged glances with Ryuko, who had reverted to her human form, and received a nod of agreement. Neijire asked for the girl's name. Sanjuno Haruhime introduced herself with a slight bow, indicating the little girl beside her. Neijire introduced herself and Ryuko, assuring Haruhime that they would stay with them and get them to the hospital safely. Haruhime expressed concern for Izuku, who lay unconscious with blood staining his hair. Neijire reassured her that he would also be taken to the hospital. Ryuko felt a sense of pride in her intern's calm demeanor, a stark contrast to her usual eagerness to interrogate. She approached Eijiro and Mina. She commended Eijiro for stepping in to protect Izuku, asking if he was a friend. Eijiro replied that he had never met Izuku before that night, introducing himself and Mina. Mina greeted Ryuko with a cheerful smile. Ryuko informed them that they would need to go to the hospital for a checkup and to provide a statement, assuring them that emergency vehicles would arrive soon. She then walked over to Eraserhead, inquiring about Kai Chisaki. Eraserhead confirmed that Chisaki was the leader of a notorious crime family, known for their involvement in the dangerous drug trigger. He expressed hope that he could extract useful information from the two boys and the unconscious one. It was going to be a long night, as it always was. Izuku slowly regained consciousness, surprisingly feeling neither sore nor drained. He noticed something warm holding his hand and looked down to see his mother asleep, gripping it gently. The rhythmic beeping of the monitors filled the room as he took in his surroundings. He was in a hospital room. Concerned, he squeezed his mother's hand, causing her to awaken instantly. She sat up, relief washing over her. Izuku's mother expressed her gratitude that he was all right. But before she could delve into her medical concerns, he asked about the girl and the kid, as well as the man with red hair. She reassured him that the girls were fine and in another section of the hospital under guard. The red-haired boy, Ijiro, had already gone home after giving his statement. As soon as she answered his questions, she switched to a more maternal demeanor, enveloping him in hugs and tears until he gently tapped her shoulder, requesting some air. She pulled back, still visibly shaken. She needed to inform the staff that he was awake, and the police were waiting to take his statement alongside a rather stern pro-hero. Left alone for a few moments, Izuku peeked under his hospital gown to check his side. To his surprise, there wasn't even a mark. He healed faster than most, but he knew he would still bear scars. A moment later, a pro-hero entered the room. The hero introduced himself as Eraserhead and explained that he wanted to take Izuku's statement regarding the incident from earlier that night. He cautioned Izuku that, depending on his account, he could potentially face charges for vigilantism due to using his quirk in public without a license. He asked if Izuku wanted a lawyer or a guardian present. Izuku requested his mother. They waited for Inko to return, and after some introductions, he began to recount everything that had happened. He explained his reasoning for intervening, the fear he saw in the girl's eyes, and the way the man had acted. He described how he used his quirk, Firebolt, to keep the man from touching the ground as a first strike, detailing the battle as best he could until Eijiro joined in. He mentioned that he sensed someone else had saved him from overhaul, though he wasn't entirely sure who it was.